I see that our facilitator for our next session is sort of waiting in the wings. So maybe if I can introduce Astrid Langeveld-Vos, assuming that I don't know if I pronounced your name right, Astrid, but I'm definitely not going to pronounce your company name right. Is it Ashmeyer?
Achmea.
Achmea, right? Okay. I was close. I've clearly got to brush up on Dutch or whatever other language that's in. So Astrid is the chief audit executive of Achmea, a large financial services company within the Netherlands with a focus on insurance. She started her career in 1995 in internal control and continued in audit and IT audit roles, becoming a member of the internal audit management team in 2010 and chief audit executive in 2014. Astrid is a board member of IIA Netherlands and a member of the Insurance and Pension Funds Committee within the Institute of Certified Accountants, in which she represents the internal audit functions of insurance companies. She's also a certified accountant herself and has a CSER certification. So, Astrid, I'll hand the floor over to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. Well, we're very happy to start with our session. Maybe I have to speed it a little bit up because I think we're a little bit behind schedule, but we'll manage. Yeah, first of all, I would like to, because you had such a nice introduction, I will have a little bit shorter ones for my panelists, which I would like to introduce. First of all, I'd like to introduce Peter Jones. Peter Jones is head of data at the Internal Audit Department of Legal and General. Yeah, welcome, Peter. Very good to have you here. He's a very experienced professional. He has a long career in various sectors, from pharmaceuticals to insurance, in which he's now. But there's a common factor, I think, in your career, Peter, and that's always data analytics. So it's a key factor in your career. So good to have you here. Next one, and I also have the challenge of pronouncing your name very well. That's Robert Zergenyi. I hope it's right. He is an IT director at Zurich and head of data science and data analytics. He is also having a long career in audit in the financial services industry, both as an internal auditor, as an external audit experience. But for now, you are already for 12 years in Zurich, and so also a very experienced colleague. And last but not least, Chiari Ziliani. It's a challenge. Very much welcome for you. Also, she is head of group audit analytics at Generali. She also has a long career in especially the insurance industry. She also has an actuarial background, so that's really great, which is always having let's say a lot to do with data. Also a long career in various insurance companies. So we have a nice group of panelists from all views of the spectrum. So that's very nice. What they have in common is also that they are the authors of a very much appreciated paper on unlocking the value of the internal audit functions by implementing data analytics, and that's also the theme of the coming session. It's a very practical guide. Probably most of the viewers have read. It's a practical paper. So it's very valuable, I think, for our profession. While we all see as an auditors, we experience the shift in the internal audit profession. Data is becoming more and more important, and our audit approach is becoming more data driven. And the pandemic actually has been a catalyst on that one. There's much increase in digitalization, but also in the availability of data and the use of data also in the first and second line. and that is changing the risk areas. It's changing our profession, and as an auditor, we have to make a choice on how we will provide assurance based on data. It will be a key part of it. So that is the theme of this session. I will also shortly explain the format of the session. We'll first start with an opening questions for our panelists. We'll have consequently some questions in between also for you as an audience. But after the opening questions, we will also have a panel presentations from the panelists. We shall have some specific questions for the panelists, but we will also answer your questions. And it probably will be also good to mention that if you need to have one-to-one with the panelists, that's also possible. So let's kick off the session with you guys and girl. So I have one opening questions for all three of you. As an internal auditors, what is the key advantage of using data analytics? So maybe Chiara, you can start.
Yes, with pleasure. So, well, I would say that the first key advantage is that data analytics allows internal audit function to provide greater assurance. It really allows team to look further and see deeper. Things, for example, if you use data analytics in the delivery of audits, it can really increase the level of assurance provided and allows also to provide valuable insight to the business in a way that would not normally be affordable if you use standard traditional audit techniques. And of course, greater assurance combined with more value to the business will result, of course, in a more relevant internal audit function.
Thank you, Chiara. Robert, have you something to add to that one? What is your view on the advantage of data analytics?
Yeah, sure. Good morning and good afternoon. I would say, in a nutshell, it's being and staying relevant in a fast-changing environment. On one side, what Chiara said, definitely increased insurance, but also we need to be, and what we heard in the first presentation from IOPA, also to be able to audit new technologies, AI, customer servicing, chatbots, automated decision making. So all these new technologies involve a lot of data, involved automated decision based on this data. And I think as an audit function, it's key that we also stay relevant in that area. So it's really both combined the past and the future, I would say, from an assurance perspective.
Thank you, Robert. Peter.
Yes, good morning and good afternoon to everybody. Those two very good answers. What I would like to add to that is the combination of data analytics tools and techniques and the role of audit is really powerful. There are very few people in big organisations who get to look end to end. So I work for Legal & General, it's very large, it's FTSE 30. We have lots of verticals that do their own thing. Analytics allows audit to look end to end at processes. You might have multiple teams and people and processes that deliver a thing for a customer, but using data and tools, we can follow that whole customer journey and provide insight where the second line or the management teams, they have handoffs and they cease to be responsible. We can see the whole thing end to end, and it's a very powerful opportunity to provide insight and then to augment it, as Chiara said, with a really solid evidence base. So it's a very robust opinion, very strong assurance you can give on a unique perspective. It means there's a real role for audit to use these technologies to provide something different for a company.
Yes, I very much agree. Although we are obliged to do this, to use the data to stay relevant, and I agree completely that it's so much added value to gain more in-depth insight and more fact-based assurance, I think. So, thank you very much for this opening question and answers on the opening questions. I think it's time to put a question forward to the audience, moderator. So we would like to have you answer the question, do you use data analytics in your audit process? So please answer. Okay, I think we have an answer. So it's for me a little bit difficult to see. It has. I cannot see the answers, but yeah, thank you very much. Well, as I see, everybody in the audience is more or less using it, except for only 2%. So that is, I think, the vast majority is using this one. But not all of us are using it as extensively, maybe as we expected. So what is your view on this, Robert? How do you explain this answer to the question?
Yeah, I'm very happy that not at all that wasn't clicked a lot. So everybody sees the importance, and I would say I make a bit marketing for our paper, because what we really try to do with our paper is give guidance for every organization to implement analytics and data science in audit. And we strongly believe there's not a one fits all, but every organization, independent of size, nature, is it P&C or life insurance, should and can implement analytics. And with our paper, we try to give some hints. We try to have some learnings from ourselves or from other institutes we know, to helping getting the value of data to an audit function.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Maybe Peter can also reflect on this one.
I'm not surprised at all. I think it's very natural, given how easy it is for people to acquire data analytics tools these days, particularly visualization tools, which are low cost and high impact. Everyone's tried it a bit. I think if you had asked the question who is using it systematically in all or most audits, you would have got a very different set of answers. And I think that's just a maturity thing. I think audit functions are still learning about how to systematize this and how best to use it consistently and regularly. But I think it's fine to experiment. I mean, try things out. Don't be afraid to fail. And yeah, that set of answers is very much in line with my experience of speaking to peers in the UK. Some people use it a little, some people use it a lot, but everybody's trying to increase what they're doing.
Yes, thank you, Peter. Chiara.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. I think this picture reflects quite well the status of the insurance market today, where the data analytics journey has started relatively recently, but it is accelerating fast because it is required by the market, by the regulators, by the external quality assurance providers. I think it would be also interesting to see the same survey 1 year ahead from now to get a flavor of this expected acceleration. For sure, there will be a shift towards an even more intensive use.
Yes, I agree. And hopefully your paper, which is already mentioned, is a very practical guide and helps those 2% which is not using data to kick off this one. Thank you very much. I would like to start with a short presentation from your side. The first question to Robert is, because there are various interpretations of what data analytics and data science is, and there's sometimes maybe some confusion on what it really entails. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, Robert?
Sure. I would say in its simplest terms, data science is a field that uses scientific methods, processes, algorithms, and tools to generate insights from structured and unstructured data and deliver actionable items from data across a broad range of application domains. And for audit, that means that the actions we generate are actually the observations and improvements we want the business to make. And data science in a term was only broadly started to be used in 2002 to describe its modern use, which is much broader and include all aspects such as behavioral science, natural language processing, big data, voice, image, and video analytics, compared to the more traditional term data analytics. For audit, data science can apply it actually to the whole life cycle, including starting, planning for audits, risk-based selection of audits, audit scoping, audit testing, root cause analysis, and reporting in numerous form. Also including developing a storyline and using visuals for different levels of audiences, including board, management, and audit committees.
Okay, thank you, Robert. If you would explain if a company is using, for example, a very well-known tool as Excel in their data analytics, would you also define that as data analytics or data science, or is it very much related to the tooling?
I would say it's more analytics in its simple sense. And when you start to go into the field, you see that there was a huge improvement the last 5 to 10 years in data science-based auditing, and Excel can do perhaps 10% of that or 5%. So it's not all about tooling, but it's really about how to adopt and how to use the relevant methods.
Yeah, so the tooling is not key, but the new tooling is helping to accelerate and makes it much easier. I think in the past tools were quite complex, and now it's for a much broader audience available and can be used. Thank you very much, Robert. Peter, maybe you can explain something on how data analytics is really impacting our audit planning process, the risk assessment, the plan, and the whole process. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Of course, yes. I mean, so Robert said earlier that the environment that we operate in is more and more data heavy. Businesses have more and more data, and it's often the quality is getting better, not always. So data has had a transformative effect on the way we audit, and I'll split my answer into 3 parts. There's actually the way we go about doing analysis for an audit has changed fundamentally. Like most people, we started out using analytical techniques in fieldwork. That's a great place to start, but we've really evolved. So now we have changed the way we write our reports. We have a dedicated analytics page in 2/3 of our audits now at L&G. There's a real focus on what are the analytical insights. We want that to be a key part of the narrative coming out of an audit. We have been innovative. We've created a new tool which we call a data notifier. So before that audit even begins, we issue the business with a notifier saying, we are going to audit you soon. We'd like to have a look at your data first in order to work out what our scope should be. So the audit's no longer a sort of set, planning, fieldwork, reporting cycle. It's got longer, and there's pre-work and there's analytical information driving the shape and scope of audits. And methodologically, we've changed. We now issue guidance to auditors on how to assess that a data set is of sufficient quality to be the sound basis of an audit opinion. That's sort of step forward. We now need all auditors to understand whether data is good enough. And that's an important judgment call. So the way that we conduct use data in audits has changed. But also, as you say, in planning and risk assessment, we've changed quite a lot there as well. We now, when we have our annual planning meeting and we're making a risk-based assessment of what to audit, we have lots of dashboards up sort of as wallpaper to help us validate our decisions. So we created one which has a whole audit universe on a page, and we can look at the most recent risks and issues in an area. We can look at whether individual bits of the business have low staffing or other sorts of problems, and then that helps us validate, is it right not to audit that this year because it's had problems recently, or should we be changing what we do? So in everything we do, from planning to audit execution to reporting, data has changed the way we operate right through that cycle. And it's not going to go away. It's only going to increase because, as you say, the data is there and it's incumbent on us to use it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Peter. So I think what you are mentioning, that data analytics is not only used in the field work, as you say, but it's all over the whole planning process and various phases of the audit, and people should not forget it because it can really help us and make it much more efficient, I think, as I understand from you. Thank you very much, Peter. Chiara, can you say something? What is your view on what are the benefits for internal auditors in using data and using data analytics? Maybe also from your experience at Generali.
Yeah, sure. So, well, the first thing I would do is to separate the two perspectives. On one side, we have the internal audit function as a collective. On the other hand, we have internal auditor professionals as individuals, and the use of data analytics will provide benefit to both, to the function and to the individuals. One first element to consider is that the implementation of data analytics triggers an upskilling effect of the auditors. It provides auditors with tools and techniques to cope with the new environment, which requires a different auditor profile, more data savvy, more technology savvy. And of course, these acquired data skills will then result in deeper business understanding. Things, for example, that by analyzing full data sets rather than testing samples, auditors, by doing that, can spot anomalies, trends, patterns, so getting stronger insight about the business being analyzed. Again, auditors will be able to get a more complete view when information are spread across multiple data sources, thanks to their agility in moving across data. So auditors who become data savvy will also become more knowledgeable about business, and here we see the collective benefit. For an internal audit function, a deeper business understanding means capability to meet company expectations. It means being able to provide greater assurance. It means possibility of having deeper discussion with the business about issues because they are supported by objective data, by numbers. So again, this is increased value for the business function, more impact for them. And this, of course, will bring an opportunity to develop or strengthen relationship between the audit and the business functions. Also, consider the benefit coming in terms of efficiency that can be reached thanks to the use of data analytics. Data analytics allows standardization of tests, which means repeatability, possibility to reuse, possibility to automate. This implies, and here we see again the double benefit for the function and for the individual contributors. This implies on the one hand, for the board and the audit committee, an internal audit functions that can focus on the highest risk areas, rather than on more routine, time-consuming tasks. For individual contributors, it means that the automations will result in an enhancement of the job, in better quality of the job, because auditors will be able to shift from routine tasks to more adding value activities. Last but not least, if we think from a human resource perspective, we already mentioned the possibility for the auditors of acquiring new digital skills, of becoming more data savvy, more technology savvy. And this will allow them to better fit in the new fast-changing environment. But on the other end, from an internal audit function perspective, the fact of becoming data-driven will make the function more attractive, will make the function more competitive in the market, in their capability of searching and attracting new talents. Of course, they will need to go along with the definition of appropriate development plans and career paths, allowing to retain those new talents who have plenty of opportunities in the market. So in a nutshell, I mean, there are many benefits for the internal audit function and for the auditors, but if I had to summarize the core aspect, I would say really assurance, efficiency, upskilling of the people, and attractiveness of the function.
Yes, thank you very much, Chiara. So it's not much in for me to summarize it, but I think it's very good for you to also give attention to the fact that it's not only making our work more efficient and provide us with tools to give more fact-based assurance and better in-depth assurance and more assurance, I think, to the auditees and the management, but it's also making the job more attractive and also helps us to be, I think, the good sparring partner of the business, which is also, I think, very key part. So to become data savvy, to have knowledge of all digital skills, that is, I think, probably a benefit which is not always at the first part of our calendar in this way. So it's not only an internal thing, but it's also helping us to promote, I think, the added value of our job and our profession. So thank you very much, Chiara. Robert, maybe to take it from another angle, we discussed also the benefits for the internal audit profession and internal auditors in the way we provide assurance. But what are the benefits from your perspective for the management board and the audit committee and probably other stakeholders in this field?
Yeah, I would very much build on what Chiara has said, because a lot of elements, what is relevant for the audit function is also relevant for management boards and the audit committees. So I would say it's mainly three things. So it's better improved assurance, in terms of efficiency, coverage, insights, and then the second one is connecting the dots, which we couldn't do before. With modern technologies and methods like network, deep learning, we can really connect dots of data which we were not able to do before, and identify issues which management was not aware, and also helping to understand, for example, root causes of common issues. So these methods really help us to dig much deeper into the real problems. And the third, I would say it's really the business context. On one side, why is that relevant? Why is that important for the audit committee and the board? And to put really a business data lens on things we are finding, to put much more emphasis in what are the highest risks. And we can use a lot of tools also when we do the reports. So visualization on context, but also on what are the issues and problems, and to get the board a much quicker understanding what they should be concerned, what's their priorities, and what is less important. So that's in a nutshell, I would summarize.
Yeah, can I ask you one other? Because do you think we promote ourselves enough in this field to the management and the audit committees? Can you say something about that? Are they aware of the fact that we are doing this, or are we keeping it a little bit of a secret? Do you have a view on that, Robert?
Yeah, I really believe that when we have the outcomes and when we have that the high impact elements we're finding, that's the best promotion for what we're doing. And in actually the improved assurance, that's really where the promotion comes. And logically, first and second line of defense, they also do a lot of data analytics, etc. So I don't think we need to promote just the facts or the methods, but the outcomes and how we serve the boards and all the committees.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I agree on that. We are professionals, and we think we are sometimes a little bit shy, maybe on that one. From my experience, maybe to say something. I was having a presentation by my data analytics colleague in the audit committee, and I was a bit surprised that the audit committee members were surprised on all the things we were doing with data and data analytics. And I was thinking, well, I already told you a couple of times when I presented the reports, but when we were showing and we were doing a little bit of a demonstration, they were quite surprised. So that is probably why I asked you. So maybe to promote it a little bit, that will also maybe help us sometimes to attract also the right people and to be supported, I think, by the top management. But well, first of all, we have to provide profound assurance, and that should be our goal. I agree completely, of course. Well, thank you very much already for this answering this, giving your presentation on these questions. I think it's now time for the moderator to have another question for the audience. It's on the screen now. And the question is for those using data analytics. Do you estimate the benefits higher than the costs? We are, of course, very curious on that one. I think that is already answered, and the vast majority is saying yes. So the benefits are higher than the cost, and I wouldn't expect any other answer after your views and on this one. But maybe you can reflect a little bit on that one, Chiara. It's not a surprising answer, I think.
No, it's not surprising, and I'm pleased to see this answer. For sure, benefits. It's true that at the beginning of the journey there is an initial investment of time, of resources, of money, which can also be significant depending on where you start from. But for sure, over time, benefit will come, and for sure they will exceed the costs as soon as you reach a minimum level of maturity. At that stage, you will really start to see the result of your investments. The benefits are the ones we just discussed, and consider that those benefits are not just purely quantitative to be compared to cost, but most of all they are really qualitative benefits in terms of better assurance that you can provide, more credible audit function that you can get through the use of data analytics. Of course, to get there, you need to reach kind of, if you want, a break-even level, and you need to have the machine up and running. But after the initial investment, for sure, benefits will come and will exceed the cost.
Okay. Peter, what is your view on that?
So I'm really pleased with the answer, of course. I think there's a bit of me saying what is value here. So because we are able to give so much more assurance, by looking at 100% sampling instead of a selection, you're more likely to find anomalies. You can have a better quality conversation. This year we've had a very powerful conversation with finance and procurement. About 6 transactions out of the many tens of thousands of things they do, 6 followed the wrong process. We wouldn't have found them sampling. It's not to say that they're necessarily material, but we are able to identify these things and have better quality conversations with the business about control weakness that we just wouldn't spot otherwise. So I think there's a lot of value. It makes audit more of a trusted partner and advisor. People know now that when audit go in, they are going to be thorough, and they are, audit's always been thorough, but I mean meticulously so. Comprehensive coverage is a very powerful thing to bring. So I'm not at all surprised that people see value in it. And there's certainly more value to be had, not just through analytical findings, but taking risk out of the business, because people will act on it because we have good quality conversations.
Do you also see downsides, Peter?
Do I see downsides? So it's not always a comfortable thing when you say to somebody, I've been looking at your data and I've found this thing you didn't find. That can create feelings of awkwardness, even shame, perhaps. And that is not the point. We're not there to make them feel bad. We're there to shine a light on what the data and what the facts are telling us, and ask whether they're considering them. And if so, maybe they knew that already, maybe they didn't, but it drives their standard up. If we see it, it means they need to see it. So it is not always positive, it's not always comfortable, but it's certainly, from a corporate de-risking perspective, it's very effective.
Yeah. So maybe the individual not always will feel comfortable, but in the end, for a company and on a higher level, it's always adding value. Although in an individual audit, it might you might come across some negative feelings from the auditee. Okay, Robert, how do you see the not surprising answer to the question that I think the vast majority of our audience luckily feels that there are so many benefits from using data?
I also understand this with the people who say no idea. I mean, I would say no idea at the beginning how high the costs are, and I think that I think if you implement data analytics and data science over a certain period, you can actually do that cost neutral. So it's really a shift of skills, a shift of skill sets, a shift of priorities. And for I would say a mid-sized organization, that's actually bearable over 2-3 years without big bang investment needed. The tooling side, that's always one which is discussed, but a lot of tools used in data science are actually based on open source. Even if you have a professional platform, most of your data scientists will come from one of the open source language, and that's actually the tools which are best described in the scientific world and which are best tested. So I believe you can do that with a lot, not a lot of I would say big bang investments, but do it more over a certain time, and then you have not that big cost block which you carry forward. And then if you shift your skill set towards more data savvy auditors in all levels with some specialists, I think you can do that very much cost neutral, and then the benefits outweigh radically. On the contrary, if you do nothing, I think you're really not relevant anymore in a few years, and you're not able to perform the duties you should do as an internal audit function.
So yeah, well, that's if there are conservatives in the audience, they are now convinced, I think, Robert, that the benefits are much bigger than the costs. Well, thank you very much. We do have some questions for you all to respond upon, but maybe the first one I would like to ask to Chiara. If you have to provide a view on what is the impact of data analytics on the audit life cycle, what is your view on that?
Well, data analytics can be successfully used in all stages of the audit life cycle. I would say that one common pitfall is exactly the fact that often we limit the use in the fieldwork phase to support control testing without fully exploiting the potentialities of using data analytics in the other stages. If we look at the various stages of the audit life cycles, let's start from the annual plan. With data analytics, you can, for example, enhance risk assessment through the use, for example, of both internal and external data to augment the quantity of information available. Then thinking of the phases in the audit engagements. You can use data analytics in audit planning and scoping. With the use of data analytics, you can really better shape the scope of the audit, focusing on the highest risk areas. You can do a better profiling. In fieldwork, the analysis with data analytics, you can really analyze full data sets instead of samples, and this will allow the auditors to spot exceptions, detect anomalies, identify patterns, so getting stronger insight. Reporting. Data analytics will allow more effective communication of issues, also through non-conventional ways, for example, also through dashboards instead of using standard report. Remember that data visualization enhances the storytelling and can be used to present results in a more effective, in a smarter way to the business, and with deeper discussions on issues and findings. Again, consider that if you have the possibility of having direct connection to business data, this could allow more timely reporting and also the possibility of implementing continuous auditing. So you see there are really plenty of opportunities to use data analytics on top of the traditional classical fieldwork testing.
Fieldwork, yeah. How do you view that, Robert or Peter? Would you like to comment on that? Yeah, Peter, you are on the screen now. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you already explained it, I think, for a part. That it's very important to use it in the audit cycle, but.
Yeah, I think as we've both said, there's opportunities to use analytics in different ways throughout. I think the sort of evolution that we're seeing in the UK in the financial sector is towards continuous evaluation or continuous monitoring. So are there some key controls that are so important that actually we'd like to look at them more frequently than as part of an annual audit? So not only does analytics support the life cycle, it may actually be changing the way we audit more fundamentally.
Yeah, and you were also already doing that within legal and general, that really continuous auditing and having your dashboards, let's say, daily on the screen on certain developments and outlines.
We are trying it out. It's early days, so we've now got dashboards that take daily feeds on things like IT access controls or money leaving the business. That way, any auditor who wants to look at those as part of their audit can get it instantaneously. It takes all that grunt out of requesting it and configuring it, and it's just there on tap. So that's a culture change. But also, yes, we're still working out how to respond to this. I mean, suppose we find something that looks bad. Do we do an audit? Do we just tell management we've seen it and let them handle it? We're still working out our approach. But from a data perspective, it's all possible. We have the technology through ETL, that's extract, transform, and load, to take data out of systems and bring it into audit departments regularly and instantaneously. The question is, what do we want to do about it? And I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers, but we are certainly trying it around some key controls, and it's giving us some sort of not real time, but some very close to live insights on what's happening in the business.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add on that, Robert, from your experience at Zurich?
Yeah, I would very much agree with Peter and Chiara. In terms of continuous auditing, that's always a question, which line of defense does what, right? And what is continuous monitoring and what is continuous auditing? And we also experiment definitely with that. What we often do is when we do an audit and we implement something similar, then we try to push it back to first line to improve the control overall, the control automation, and that control is operated where it should be operated. And I think that's a bit the general acceptance in the industry, to have a clear delineation between the three lines of defense. And I mean, we try really to do everything what we need to do as part of our charter, but we not try to do what first or second line should do.
Yeah, I think that's a nice bridge to the question on how the three lines of defense in this in data analytics are collaborating, and especially probably maybe blurring of the lines in some cases. That is also well, a known theme, of course, but also in this field, I think that is the case. Can you say something about that, Peter? How do the three lines collaborate? Do they collaborate maybe enough? Do they use each other's knowledge enough?
Yeah, this is a really tricky area. I think there's a balance to be struck. So I have a network of peers across the organisation who are people like me, analytical people, and we have very useful conversations around, can you get data out of this system or this team? And they say, oh, yes, maybe I've set up an API. And you go, fantastic, I didn't know that was an option. I'll go and do that. So we are very careful that we don't collaborate. We need to avoid a situation where sorry, let me come back a step. We will have very good meetings with the business and they'll say, wow, I love this piece of analysis, this dashboard. I wish I had this. Could I have it? And I have to say, well, I can't be in a position where audit is providing you your reporting because that affects my independence. I can't really come in and critique you in future because you're going off data that is sort of audit sanctioned almost, and that's not a situation. So I can share how I did it, what data I used, but I'm trying to encourage the business to create their own. And that's an odd tension because in a way it feels like I'm a bad corporate citizen. I've got this thing which could help the business now, but I'm saying go and build your own and it might take you a while. That's not comfortable, but I think it is absolutely fundamental that we do maintain our independence. So be sharing with what you've got, how you do it. We're very open about it, but we have a very strict rule about not being a provider of dashboards. And someone saying, "Oh, could you just add this?" I don't want to be serving the second or the first line. So I would say the answer to your question is there's increasingly good collaboration between data teams. But we have got some red lines for audit that we won't cross, whereas the first and second line are much more able to swap, tooling and dashboards between themselves.
Okay, that's nice to hear. We are having a little bit within my company. We are providing those dashboards, but we're saying you cannot copy it, but you have to implement it in a more managed environment, and then we can audit. So we provide the dashboards, we provide education and give courses on how to use tooling, and then so maybe you are also doing that, but it's good to hear. Maybe it's something to think about. And Chiara, can you say something on the cooperation within Generali or maybe on your general view on the cooperation between the lines, and maybe also the red lines that is Peter mentioning?
I agree. This is definitely a tricky area because also from an audit perspective, I mentioned before the continuous auditing, continuous monitoring. But is this something that audit should do, or is this more something that the business should do? My view is that maintaining our independence, I could see here also an opportunity to reach that level of internal audit as a truly business partner. Most often we talk about audit function that wants to move from the status of the policeman to a real business partner. Maybe this is also the way to do that. Create a strong collaboration, passing also those tools to the business at some point, if this goes for the benefit of the company as a whole. But it is tricky. It is tricky because this red line exists, and I think it also takes time. It's not something that you can do from one day to the other. It requires a collaboration between second line and third line, and with this collaboration, I think we can find a way to provide better assurance to the board, improve internal processes without bearing the risk of losing that independence.
Independence, yes. Yeah, we are. Time is flying, I was saying. So we have had a few questions. Maybe very quickly some pitfalls and main obstacles maybe when using data analytics in the audit process. We have touched a little bit upon it already through through our session, but can you maybe tip on a few in a few words on that one? Chiara, maybe first.
I would say that the other part of any business transformation is probably changing the culture.
Yeah.
One very common pitfall when starting to implement data analytics is underestimation of change resistance, because gaining acceptance from auditors that the use of data analytics is the new normal is not something exceptional, but something trending to be a natural component of every audit. This might really be challenging. To overcome this, according to our experience, there are 3 elements which are really key. The first is continuous communication. The second is maintaining an inclusive approach towards the teams. And the third is evidence of tangible value delivered. Let me briefly comment on these 3 aspects. Continuous communication. You really need to have a regular cascading of the strategy. You really need to share success and progresses. This is fundamental to set a positive tone and maintain the focus. It's really essential to continuously promote the value of data analytics for the internal audit function. You need to have a vision, and you need to communicate a vision so that everyone understands why the change is necessary. The more you communicate, the more it becomes part of the normal. The second aspect is this inclusive approach. Teams must be part of the journey in the sense of actively contributing to shape the journey. The internal audit functions might, for example, leverage on champions to drive the change, to reach out to local teams to promote the use of data analytics, but also to collect their feedback and adjust the journey if necessary. And the third aspect is the delivery of tangible value, because words are important, continuous communication is fundamental, but it's not sufficient if words do not come along with concrete examples of added value to convince all the auditors that the change is necessary. That's why implementation plan should be fed with quick wins. I'm not thinking of great things, but also small things useful to convince the auditors that this is the right way to go. Test repositories, for example, simple tools, user-friendly trainings, selection of pilots. So really, I would say that the first very common pitfall is the underestimation of change resistance. There are other aspects you should consider. Lack of skills, for example. It might be tricky because external hiring is difficult due to the scarcity of data scientists in the market, and due to the high competition. Retention is also very difficult. You can think of training internal resources, but training internal resources up to the desired level of knowledge takes time. And there is always a natural gap between the theory learned and the application into practice. Another aspect, thinking of pitfalls, is data quality and data availability. This also might represent a relevant obstacle to run analytics, because you need to understand where data sits, if they are of suitable quality. You need to assess possible system constraints, coordinate with the IT functions. You might also need data that the company is not collecting. in respect to this, however, I would say that be careful, because data quality issues, even before representing an obstacle to run analytics, should be reported for what they are in an audit context. A part of the audit procedures that need to be assessed for its business impact and root cause. In other words, if data are of bad quality or are not easily retrievable, even before representing an issue from a data analytics perspective, they represent an issue in itself. It's the most likely this is a business issue whose root cause might be investigated.
Okay, thank you, Chiara. So maybe then a last question for you, Robert, before we maybe have one or two questions from the audience. Maybe you can give a little bit of a quick view on how you think data analytics will evolve in the coming years, and what's the impact on our profession?
Yeah, I would say in the insurance industry, we will still have a few years a lot of business on legacy system, unless we are one of the new tech incubators coming in a greenfield approach. There you can implement, data and data models much more straightforward. So I would say the data analytics and data science profession in the insurance industry will need to keep up to new systems, new algorithms, new tools, AI ethics, all these questions. Deep skilled data scientists will be needed to walk with the business on the same pace, and ensuring still assurance on the whole legacy, where still a majority of the business in the large corporation are produced. So bridging that gap between the two worlds will dominate a bit the profession, I would say, for the next few years. And then I would say it's really all about big data, massive data, deep learning, all new methods. And what we saw in model accuracy and training accuracy of just for the next 5 years, that started in 2010 of around 20% and reached 95% in 2019. And reached about the human decision level. So now we are already, I would say, depending on which algorithm we use, 2 years better than the humans, and that will, as per futurist thing, will continue that way. So our machines will be much more powerful than a human decision can be. So to keep up to that speed, we need really the very skilled people on the market, and that's what Chiara also outlined. That's really a bit the war on talent currently in the industry, which we see directly, and we are directly impacted.
Yes, Robert. So only the development will only accelerate. If I hear you, it will. The pace will accelerate, let's say, also because of the availability of data and more use of technology. Well, Stephen, I already see you in the screen. I don't think there's a possibility for a question of the audience, or do we get a few more minutes? Okay, I see. I hope I can read it. Oh yeah, that's a nice question. I saw it popping up. Maybe that's something to answer by the panel. What area do you think should we focus upon in the insurance industry? And the question is it claims, or is it finance, or is it IT, or is it all? Can you say something about that?
Sure, I'm happy to go. So 6 months ago, one of the big consultancies in the UK, Deloitte, did a survey across all sectors in the UK to ask where people were doing their analytics, and the biggest area by far was financial controls.
Yeah.
Now I think that's because they're very consistent. The month-end processes are well known. Liquidity and morbidity, and the big risks are there. And the data is usually decent, not perfect, but decent, because accounting requires a certain standard of data quality. So in terms of that nice correlation between where your risks are and where the data's good, it's a great place to start. That said, I don't think there's a right answer to this. It will depend on the risks of your business. But I think, yeah, financial controls is a very common starting point for people and a good place to begin.
Yeah, very helpful, Peter. So it's also a matter of, of course, where the big risks are, but especially also, do we have the data and is it of good quality to have well, reasonable answers? Maybe we only have time for one other one. And that's, I think, a very common one. Does the size of the team matter in this way? The use of data analytics. You already answered it a little bit, I think, but everybody should do it. But can somebody reflect on that one?
Yeah, I think every organization should and can invest in the relevant skills and techniques. And a smaller organization will have a smaller team, but definitely you would need the right skills and resources in any organization. It should be in accordance to probably the size of your overall organization, of your other team. We are trying to upskill everybody, so I think it should be always a mix of good upskilled auditors and really data science specialists. And what's the most important element is always the business acumen and the business understanding. So you need that combination. Only technically very well trained data scientists without that business understanding will not give you the insights and the assurance needed.
Yeah, you need to be able to ask the right question, as you were saying, otherwise. And maybe the good news is that what you were mentioning also, the techniques are becoming more and more user friendly. Yeah, that is helping also, I think, the smaller departments. Well, I think we have to finish the session, but not before saying a big thank you to all three of you, Peter, Robert, and Chiara, for your very good input on this session and very good elaboration on the subject. Summarizing it, everybody should accelerate on using data, because there are so many benefits, not only by providing better assurance, but also a better way of communicating with your stakeholders, being attractive as a job, as a profession, and attract the right people in your department. And yeah, I think most of all, becoming a good or staying a good sparring partner with the management. Thank you very much. And I would also promote again, you are having it on the screen, Robert, the paper, which is I think very helpful for the people who haven't read it. Please read it. It's a very good one. I hand it over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Astrid, and thank you everybody taking part in this discussion. It's been incredibly insightful and incredibly interesting, as have all of the sessions this morning. So thank you all again. I guess at this point in time, we are able to take a bit of a break and look forward to this afternoon's session, where we'll be covering off the topics of sustainability and the impact of global trends on internal audit in insurance. So thank you ever so much to everybody who's joined. Thank you ever so much to the presenters. And I look forward to welcoming you back in an hour's time. Thank you ever so much, and see you shortly.